So, indexicality, a cool linguistic idea for how to understand language and interpretation. Most language relies on having some context. It has to point to something else. It is indexical of something else. And most of the time, when you're walking along and talking with your friends or texting with people, most daily language is indexical. You have to be there, you have to be in context, otherwise it doesn't make sense. By the way, where are you the most likely to hear non-indexical language or proposition statements like the capital of France is Paris? Who deals in non-indexical language? Yes. School, yes. Your professors should be dealing, for the most part, in non-indexical language. That's what makes us so boring, because we're always giving you proposition statements. The capital of France is in Paris, lacking that indexicality or that emotional delivery, because they're all supposed to be the same facts. And school is where we get most of our non-indexical language. Your textbook also talks about the idea of language as not just meaning making, but as action itself. Now, this comes to us from the ideas of something called speech act theory, which is basically that words are not just information, they produce action. Or, as I tried to tell you, the house is on fire is information that does not produce action. But the house is on fire is meant to produce some sort of action. It's meant to get you out of the place or get you to do something. Or when you are pronounced guilty in court, it is not just information, it is a sentence. It produces action in the world. One interesting example of this is the role of gossip in many societies. So gossip might seem to be something that is trivial or unimportant, but in fact, gossip is often used to enforce a social norm within a community. Those of you who grew up in small towns may know how this works. People get gossiped about, and sure, people are communicating information, maybe fake information, but it's also a way of keeping people in place, making sure they do the right thing so they don't get shamed by it. Those of you who go to small colleges may realize that this is a way of enforcing social norms or of keeping people in and out of groups, trying to make sure people know their place. So something like gossip may seem trivial, but for those who are subjected to it, it can be quite disciplining in how it is used to keep people in line. The other example of language, you title this section, Language is Social Action. I'll give us an example on page 210 of a Hungarian political party. I'd like to read this to you because in some ways this parallels what is going on, has been going on in our own society and many societies across the world, not just our society. So, linguistic anthropologist Susan Gall has analyzed a case in which a new anti-immigrant political party in Hungary called Jobbik challenged the ruling party and European Union immigration policy. In political writings, campaign literature, and public speeches, the Jobbik party began to refer to the Romani, the Roma community, as gypsy, a known pejorative ethnonym. So a little bit of social context here. In our country, we sometimes use the word gypsy as somebody who's carefree and traveling from place to place. But in European societies, this was a pejorative, a bad word for a community known as Roma or Romani, which exists as a diaspora across several different European societies, Hungary being one of them. And so to call people a gypsy in that context is a put down or a pejorative ethnonym. Jobbik also began to use the terms gypsy criminals and gypsy crime. In this way, Jobbich's discourse about gypsy criminals served effectively to turn them into criminals in the perceptions of many Hungarians, and so bolstered public support for their own policies. So we have people who are labeling others as gypsy criminals, illegals, in order to get support. This has been happening in our own society. Recently, a member of our administration said, "We are deporting criminals and security threats." Now, what is the feeling you get when somebody tells you that they are deporting criminals and security threats? What feeling does that produce in you? You should feel good. I want those criminals out of here. I don't like criminals around. I want them gone. I don't want security threats here. I like feeling secure. Right? So if somebody says I'm deporting a criminal, I say, great, do it. Get them out of here. You should feel good. If you say, well, we are rounding up people and putting them on a plane and putting them in jail in El Salvador, which just happened, with no due process, well, I don't know if I feel so good. I'm like, wait a second. Why are you sending people to jail in El Salvador? Of course, there's a problem with this word due process. What is due process to you? Yeah, right to a fair trial. Yeah, that's technically what due process means, is that you should have some form of trial. You should be charged with a crime. I feel like in this case, though, it simply means, what's the evidence? You need to provide some sort of evidence before you throw somebody in jail, especially in El Salvador. So for me, I would just like some evidence. The primary form of evidence seems to be that they had tattoos. More evidence with some of them, but nobody knows because nobody provided evidence. So yeah, the right to a fair trial. Now, you might say, yeah, that's for me. I get due process. I'm a citizen, so I get due process. Due process is just for citizens. Don't get due process if you're not a citizen. What's the problem with if we live in a world where due process only applies to citizens? What's the problem? Or what might happen? Let me put it to you this way. Glenn, where is your evidence of citizenship? Are you carrying it? What kind of ID? A New York State ID? Like a driver's license? Is that evidence of citizenship? No, a driver's license you can get. You don't actually have to be you don't have to actually have citizenship to get a driver's license. Oddly enough, yes, yeah. It's a social security card is a pretty weak form of citizenship evidence. If you what is your best citizenship evidence? Is anybody carrying it? Birth certificate or a passport? Yeah, it's easier. But if people burst in here and say, you're not a citizen, and take you away, and you don't have due process, the thing is, what is your evidence of citizenship, right? Are you allowed to even present that? Where is it? Do you even have it? Where is your birth certificate? Here? Oh, at least it's at school. That's good. Many people don't even know where their birth certificate is. Their parents have it somewhere, locked away. So let us say that the agents come in here and say, and arrest me because I am a national security threat. What should you do when they arrest me? Are any of you going to stand up for me? No, you shouldn't. What can you do? You're not supposed to stand up for me. You can't do anything. That's the whole problem with this. Don't fight people with guns. You're not going to overpower them. If they come in here and arrest me for being a national security threat, you just have to live with it. So the thing is the way that we talk about people and the way that we explain things produces images in our mind which allows certain things to happen. If someone is automatically a criminal because they are in the wrong place at the wrong time, then that's one kind of society that you want to live in. Not the society that I thought I lived in, but there we are.